Hey guys, it's Tony with Backwoods Biker Magazine and Wood Tramp Outdoors. A lot of questions came in here in the last, I guess probably last 3 or 4 weeks, asking me if I could recommend any books or what books do I have in my own personal library. Hang tight and I'm going to share those with you. Guys, welcome back. I'm not going to try to hold you hostage here for very long, but I do want to answer your question because I feel like education and training is paramount to anybody that's going to go out into the bush, no matter where you're at. The more you know, the less you carry. The more you know, the less there is a probability for any type of mishap. So, what books? You know, I was asked about Dave Canterbury. I've been asked about, I don't want to go into the whole list, you know, Les Stroud, Morris Kohansky, all that, okay? But just let me tell you the books that I would recommend for you to have in your library, especially if you are a beginner bushcrafter, or even if you're not. I mean, because there's a lot of good stuff in these books I'm going to show you. But the first one is called Woodcraft and Camping. And this was written, first written back in the 1800s by George Washington Sears, whose pen name he was known as Nessmuk. And this is probably the most popular and reprinted, sold over and over again. So many woodsmen have reached for this little booklet here as a guide. And he's very, very detailed in what he does, but Nessmuk was a bad mofo, tramping through the wilderness while it was still the wilderness, and he was very successful at it. So that would be the first book that I would recommend. It's probably the oldest one that I have. Now this is a newer version. I had one of these before I was a Boy Scout. You become a Boy Scout when you're 11, so I probably had this book, a very early version of this, when I was 9 to 10 years old, and I had it dog-eared and ripped and everything else. So that's why I picked this up again for my library, to be able to pass it on to people that I'm teaching, and I use it oftentimes because of the information. The next one is called The Book of Camping and Woodcraft by Mr. Horace Kephart. And Horace Kephart, actually he refers to Nessmuk a lot, but Horace Kephart is known throughout the outdoors world as one of the foremost knowledgeable guys on the planet, you know, that put this book together. And he has updated it several times. This is the field size. This is the 1910 version. But everything that you could use out in the bush is in here. He covers, I'll just tell you the table of contents, some of it. Outfitting, the sportsman's clothing, personal kits, tents and tools, utensils and food, the campfire, marksmanship in the woods, dressing and keeping game and fish, pests in the woods. That is a really neat chapter because the black flies, what he has to say about black flies is very interesting. You know, emergency foods, living off the country. And then it's full of many illustrations. That was one of the things that I really liked about this book. It's got a lot of illustrations in it. And also, Kephart's book has some illustrations in it. Not a lot, but there are some. And this one on the campfire, as it should be. That's pretty cool there, you know, I mean. And as you read these, that's why I'm telling you, start out with Nessmuk's book, then go to Kephart's book. If all you had was these two, you'd be good to go, truly. But then, you know, we got some modern writers also, and I got to tell you, a lot of the modern writers read these books and reformulated whatever and regurgitated some things and put their books together. And, you know, there's a bridge between, what I would say is a bridge between these old pioneer outdoorsmen to the more modern. And I would say that the number one would be Mr. Morris Kohansky. And Morris, recently passed away the last few years. He left one heck of a legacy, being from up north. And this book that he has left us, as I said, it acts as a bridge between the old school and the new school. And his book, I'll give you an example here again. I should probably just read, go through the different table of contents. Firecrafting. And he's got a lot of pages. It's a big section on firecraft because he was always a school of thought. Fire is a skill that you need to know how to do in any condition, anywhere in the world, no matter what. And I agree with him 100%. Fire is very, very important, even in the summertime when you don't need to stay warm. Axe crafting, knife crafting, saw craft, bind craft, shelter craft. You see where he goes with this. Everything to him is bush crafting type of stuff. And these are all different disciplines within bushcraft that he covers. Then he talks about the different birches because where he's from, it's full of them. And then the conifers, the spruces, tamarack. It just everything's in here. And he even got a couple things on the moose and the varying hair because, again, those are native to where he was from. But this book can be found on Amazon, and I have found it very, very valuable, full of detailed illustrations, as you can see here. Just every part of this book, and then there's an addendum also to it that had some colored photographs in there. But by the time you get to that, you've already read these. But Morris Kohansky, one of the superstars of this century and the past century. So that's a great book to have there also. Now we're talking about going into the more modern guys that I would recommend. Les Stroud, highly respected, well known everywhere, of course, because of Survivor Man. But even if Survivor Man didn't exist, Les Stroud is bad to the bone. And he often refers to Morris. They were personal friends, as a matter of fact. And he absolutely refers to Kephart and Nesbook. But what Les has done is he has taken it to a different level. And he has taken much of what he learned from those before him and has adapted them to a more modern approach. And you listen to this guy. His television programs are very interesting, and what sets him apart from everybody else that you ever see on TV is he's the real deal. He doesn't take out a big crew with him. He doesn't have people off 10 feet from him with a bottle of water and a sandwich for him. He goes out by himself with his camera equipment and very little gear and shows you how it can be done and it needs to be done. And then he's taken much of his training and experience and has placed it inside this marvelous book. It's one of my favorite modern books right here, if not my favorite. It's called Survival. And table of contents on this one here. Trip planning and preparation. Not enough can be said about that. I'm not going to get into this. Too many people just head off and, they aren't prepared. But survival kits, psychological aspect of survival, absolutely. Signaling, water, fire, shelter, food, survival, travel and navigation, dangers and hazards, weather, clothing, survival first aid, essential survival skills. And then he even has one on when disaster strikes close to home. So he covers a lot of ground in this book. So you have the beginning of our pioneers that wrote, and then you've got Morris Kohansky that was a bridge, and then you got guys like Les Stroud that has followed deep within their shadows and has dug out the nuggets and the jewels, has really mined those for us and put it in a very concise edition here. If you only bought one book, this would not be a bad place to start. But again, I would not be without those in my library. Another one that leads us, from the bridge, David Westcott. David doesn't have the Hollywood glamour that a lot of the modern guys do. Like Stroud. Even though he is top tier. I mean, he's right in the top 10 survivalists that are alive today. But him and Westcott, they're very good friends. And David Westcott doesn't have the notoriety that Wes does, or Les does. Man, did I just call him Wes? I sure did. He doesn't have the notoriety from being glamorized like Les did, or a David Canterbury that was on. I think it was Dual Survival. That was another staged program. I got a lot of respect for Dave Canterbury, but Westcott quietly has developed skills, and he uses a lot of primitive skills. This book is Primitive Technology, a book of earth skills. And if you're going to be a successful bushcrafter, successful outdoorsman, you need to know primitive skills. I mean, they are one of the elements that will make you successful out there. In order to be successful, there are different skills and different schools of thought that you have to embrace and learn. And Westcott put this book together, and again, it's full of illustrations. It's full of explanations. I mean, you can just follow this so easy. But let me give you the table of contents here. And again, I mean, he's very detailed. Fire, where we begin. Here's another one that says we're at the beginning. You heard that from Stroud. That was one of the first ones. Morris Kohansky, that was the first one for him. Bone, stone, and wood, the basic elements. Gathering and preparing plant fibers. He's big into that. Projectiles, power from the human hand. These are all our skills. He's got even something on here on art and music, which is a really neat read, and I love this book. I don't turn to it as often as I do some of these others, but I have it in my library for a reason. Okay, that's David Westcott. And then here is another book that was edited by David Westcott. It's okay. It's got a lot of primitive skills in it, but this was put together by, let me see, the Society of Primitive Technology. And there's several different types of writers that are in here, but they're all very skilled. And David took the best, the cream of the crop, and put it in this book for you here. Again, the table of contents, searching the past, food sources, containers, again, projectiles, buckskin, how to work buckskin, working your hides, buckskin babblings, I don't know what that is, tan your hides with nature's tools, and then transportation, and then he has a really neat section on back to the basic tools through time. There's been many a time that I've been out in the bush and I've broken something. I've broken a knife before, and primitive skills helped me get through until I got back home. Being able to flint knap a cutting device, is very, very important. So that's another neat book by David Westcott. It's a little pricey. It's almost $30. And to be honest with you could spend $30 better elsewhere. This would be, kind of a supplemental book. How's that? Okay. Now let's move on to some of the more recent guys. We'll talk about this here. We got a couple books by David Canterbury. And again, Dual Survival is really what put him on the map. He's got a great school over in Ohio. And Dave has taken some hits, you know, but I mean, he treats it as a business, and he does good at it. You know, a lot of guys are jealous of him, to be quite frank. You know, when I hear people talk about him, talk shit about him, it's usually because they're jealous of what he's done. You know, but if I had to pick a couple guys that I'd be out in the bush with in a survival situation, he'd be one of them. You know, Les Stroud's another one. You know, you got those two guys in your hip pocket, and you're going to be getting home. So these can be found on Amazon or on his website. You know, gee, what is that website? It's well, I don't know. You'll just have to check it out yourself. That's how much that I look at his website. But these are decent books. Bushcraft 101, A Field Guide to the Art of Wilderness Survival, and the 5 C's. He's really known for that, the 5 C's of survivability, and he's upped them to 10, and I think that he even had a supplement of 5 more to make it 15, and then there's some redundancies. But it is a great format that he shares with you. Packs, carrying your wool blankets. You know, he's big on wool blankets, as I am. The rucksack, the pack frames, the pack baskets. It's full of illustrations in here. You know, this would also be one of those books that I would say, you know, after your Kephart and your Ness book, you know, this would be probably one of those that I wouldn't mind putting at the beginning. It's just full of great illustrations, you know, on how to do different things. And then that other book that he wrote is Advanced Bushcraft, An Expert Field Guide to the Art of Wilderness Survival. And again, it's the same thing, you know. I mean, he really goes through this, but you will often hear him when he's talking. I mean, he respects the old guys, like Kephart and Nessma, you know. Building your kit, natural resources. And then in this book, he goes to the 10 C's of survivability. The first one was 5 C's, now it's 10. Natural resources. Wooden tools and simple machines, which I really like that. Advanced woodcraft. Shelters, knots, bindings, weaves, and looms. Trapping. Dave is not only an expert trapper, but he teaches classes on trapping, and from what I understand, I've never attended, but I understand that he's got one of the top trapping classes in the country. Preserving food sources, that's a good one. Hide preservation, woodworking, blacksmithing, and that's another thing he does. He is a world-class blacksmith. He's very respected amongst blacksmiths around the world. Containers and conveyances, you know, all kinds of them. Clay vessels, boats, pack frames, tips and tricks. There's all kinds of stuff in here, and again, it's full of illustrations, you know, and he does a good job, you know, so that's not a commercial for him or his company. I'm just telling you, it's a decent book to have. And then moving on to a couple more of these. I'm not so jazzed about this book, but I bought it because Andre Francis Bourbeau is who the author is. Wilderness Secrets Revealed. Very few pictures in here and hardly any illustrations at all. It reads more like a novel than anything else. You know, it's decent for reading if you're bored. You know, but at one time he held the Guinness Book of World Records for staying out in a survival situation in the wilderness. I think that has long been broken since then. But it's a decent read, but I mean, it's not at the top of the list that I would say you got to have this book. No. And I'll go over those. You got to have books. And then very, very new, and you can see how new it is. I put my flags on there, the things that interest me that I wanted to talk to the author about and read about. But this is from Craig Caudill. Both of these books. One is called Ultimate Wilderness Gear, Everything You Need to Know to Choose and Use the Best Outdoor Equipment. And I think that is great, especially if you're a novice, you're just getting out, and you're wanting to know what to buy and what not to buy, because there's so much gear out there where guys waste hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on gear they don't need. You know, a lot of stories are out there of people that have went on the Appalachian Trail, and the Appalachian Trail is just littered with gear set down by the side for somebody else to pick up, only to be left somewhere else because it's really nonsense to carry. Craig covers that very well in this book here. Some of the things that he carries, or covers rather, and it's full of illustration as well. Fundamentals of acquiring gear and understanding your needs, essential tools, maintaining your personal safety, shelter, fire, water and hydration, food pack, specialty gear, all kinds of stuff in here. But I really like Craig's approach. Super nice guy. We've done a couple articles on Craig, as a matter of fact. He's known around the world as being a top class tracker, especially manhunter. He teaches many of our government agencies. So that is his book on ultimate wilderness gear. And again, I recommend that for beginners. And then he's got one out here called Extreme Wilderness Survival. Essential knowledge to survive any outdoor situation, short-term or long-term, with or without gear, and alone or with others. I mean, he covers a lot of stuff in this book. Give you an idea, the proven systems of survival study, okay? Methods to increase awareness of your surroundings. Increase your ability to avoid danger. Develop your mental fortitude so that you can handle anything. That is very, very important. Mindfulness and transforming your perspective of everything you encounter. Then he goes off into increasing your toolbox of survival skills. He just covers a lot of stuff here, And again, this is a guy. When he was a kid, he went. It's kind of a funny story, but he went out deer hunting and got lost and got so rattled that he lost a boot along the way. I'm not sure if he lost his bow or not, somewhere in the back of my mind. But yeah, I'm going to read you something here. This is just where his head is at. There's 4 things on this page. This comes off page number 30 in this book, Extreme Wilderness Survival. And these are categories. I'm going to read you a part of it, but it says 70% accuracy is good enough. Have humility, listening skills are more important than speaking skills to keep you out of these stressful and dangerous situations. Understand the combat rule of 3. Very important. The application for survival situations that you recognize 3 instances of anything out of the ordinary, you should change what you're doing. That's very, very important. And he goes into detail on this here, but it's so true. If you're out in the bush and you encounter an anomaly that gets your attention, mark it down. If you see it again, now you're being pointed toward danger. You see it the 3rd time, stop what you're doing, because this could turn into a bad situation. And I love this. Surround yourself with people better than you. Learn from people that have experience, that can teach you. That's what all these books are about. Books will put you right into the lap of these great outdoorsmen. Okay, so that's another great book. And again, he's got illustrations in here. How to do different things. Little kits and stuff like that. Frog gigs, just everything in here. I like this book. Okay, and then just kind of as a supplemental, I'd mention this to you because I get a lot of questions about knots. I've been to rendezvous before and classes where guys are bragging that they can tie 30 knots. Great for you. I really appreciate your diligence on learning those 30 knots when really you only need about 4 or 5. So this little book here is a Boy Scout book, and let me see if I can get the date on this dude. 1978 is the copyright on this. I was 1 year out of high school when this came out. I didn't get it then, but as a Boy Scout, we did have different books on how to do knots. So this is a little tiny book, knots and how to tie them. You don't need to know every knot that's in here because there are probably over 100 different knots that are in here. And I do have some videos out on the 5 knots that you should know, 7 if you really want to extend yourself. But this is a great book on how to tie knots. If you're going to go out into the bush at all, even if you don't, knots are important just in your daily routine, really. But this is the one I'd recommend. I had one, and I am not kidding you. The book was probably about this size right here, maybe a little bit bigger than this, a little thicker than this here. And there was over 1,000 different knots in that book. I gave it to my grandson just for, to get him started to look at things and get him interested. But something like that could overwhelm you if you're not careful. But this is the book that I would recommend, something like this, to learn knots. And then I have these books. I've had these for a while. A couple of them I've got from when I was in the Marine Corps. But this is provided by the military. It's Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Survival, Evasion, and Recovery. It's a multi-service procedures for survival, evasion, and recovery. And I don't even know if you can purchase these. You might be able to. Everything's for purchase these days. But this has everything in here. And the first thing that this says here, let me give you, these are the 5 points of evasion. For those of you that are interested in something like that. Immediate actions, think before you act. Initial movement, hold up, your hide site, evasion movements, and then recovery. There's just, it goes through so much stuff, It's got the code of conduct in here, everything in here. I recommend something like this if you are in that place where you feel like you're going to have to know survival, evasion, and recovery. And then this happens to be an evasion instructor's guide from 1997. It covers, from a military standpoint, if you need to recover, this is the instructor's guide. And then this is an evasion reference book, also from 1997. If I remember right, I think this book was given to me, issued to me. I don't remember where I got it at, but it's got a lot of great stuff in it, And then this is what the instructors would use, So they're great books to have, So there. Now let's break this down. Must-have books if you're beginning. Number 1 would be this here by George Washington Sears, Nessmuk. Second would be Kephardt's book on the Book of Camping and Woodcraft. My third one would be Les Strout's book. Fourth one would be Bushcraft, Outdoor Skills and Wilderness Survival. That's 4 books, and let's just keep it at 5. Bushcraft 101. Okay? Those right there. So, start out with this one. But hopefully that answers your question about my library. I've got more books, but these are the ones that really get my grease hot. I like these. So I hope that helped you out. Education is paramount to your success out in the wilderness. As I always say, like a knot, when you learn the bowline for the first time, just don't learn that knot. You need to do that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Be able to do it blindfolded. Be able to do it in the pitch dark of night. Be able to do it whenever you're neck deep in water, lying down shivering in the snow. You need to be able to do that bowling in your sleep. Every knot should be that way. So when you're actually in a wilderness situation, in a survival situation, you're not fumbling. You know how to do everything. It's not only with knots. That's with a bow drill fire. So many guys have walked away from a survival class and they were successful because they were taught by good instructors on how to do it. They get out and they do it once or twice, and they realize your bic lighter is a whole lot easier. And then they lose that skill. It's not super hard, but there are some critical techniques that you need to develop in your memory, in your muscle memory, and the only way that you do it is that you practice. So thank you for watching. I hope this helped you out. Get out and get you some books, start building your library, and become a better outdoorsman. Appreciate you watching. subscribe to the channel, and you'll be put in our database for free gear every month. So until next time, you guys ride free, you live free, and as always, you be safe out there.